Mr. Mayor, I believe at your convenience.
Good evening, Halstead. Welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'd like to call the council meeting to order. First item on the agenda, I'll ask, is there any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, staff would ask that under new business, we add items 4 and 5, with item 4 being a consideration of a stormwater repair, and then item 5 being just a general discussion of with staff and the council on COVID-19 and the city's response.
Okay. Hopefully everybody has edited their agenda to reflect that. So we'll get started. First thing I'm going to ask for is the approval of the consent agenda. First, we need a motion to approve it.
Mr. Mayor,
I make a motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Please state your name before you make the motion.
I did say Campbell here, but maybe it didn't come through.
Okay.
Sam Farmer, second.
And now we'll go to Jamie for the overview.
Motion by Councilmember Campbell to approve the consent agenda for April 27th, 2020, seconded by Councilmember Farmer.
Okay, we've got the motion and the second out there. We'll start the roll call vote. And tonight I'm going to utilize my gallery view and start with you, Sam Farmer.
Aye.
Ed Campbell.
Aye.
Denise Clausen.
Aye.
George Torres.
Aye.
And Mike Wallace.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Now we will move on to number 5, Harvey County Economic Development Council representative appointment. Is that right, Ethan?
No,
That's all under the consent. Never mind. So we're going to move to unfinished business, and we have consideration of a memorandum of understanding for wastewater with the city of Sedgwick. So, Ethan, I'll let you take that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We did get a notification from the city of Sedgwick that they approved that memorandum of understanding to use a certified wastewater operator that is on City of Halstead staff. So we would just recommend, after consultation with Attorney Jantz, that there be a motion to approve that memorandum of understanding and authorization for Mayor Travis to sign the document.
I have one question. It states in there that the support was out of Valley Center, Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the question in my mind, why is that changing?
Valley Center notified the city of Sedgwick that they were no longer able to honor the MOU that they had with the city of Sedgwick. I believe their public works was having some staffing issues. It's my understanding. So us being a neighboring community that is fortunate enough to have 2 certified operators, we stepped up to try and help in the short term.
Okay, it was no legal issue, anything like that then?
Nope,
Okay.
I believe it was staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
With that, George Torres here, I would make a motion to approve the MOU memorandum of understanding with the city of Sedgwick for the use of certified wastewater operator and authorization for Mayor Travis's signature on the document.
Ed Campbell, second.
Got the motion and the second to approve the consideration of memorandum of understanding for wastewater with the city of Sedgwick. We'll have Jamie review this motion.
Motion by Councilmember Torres to approve the memorandum of understanding with the city of Sedgwick for use of a certified wastewater operator and authorization of Mayor Travis's signature on the document, seconded by Councilmember Campbell.
Okay, there's the motion and second. We'll start the roll call vote. Sam Farmer.
Aye.
Ed Campbell.
Aye.
Denise Clausen.
Aye.
George Torres.
Aye.
And Mike Wallace.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thanks, council. We'll move on to new business. It looks like we've got consideration of check 116158 to C Squared. So Ethan will enlighten us on why Ed's getting more money from the city.
Thank you. Check number 116158 is an amount of $265, as Mayor Travis indicated, to C Square, which is the business operated by Councilmember Campbell. This was due to the Wedgwood Golf Course remodel. We needed some decaling on the coolers and around the clubhouse in general. And then there were also coyote cutouts that we use in order to deter geese from making permanent residents because they tear up the greens and the fairways. So that is what that was for.
Okay, council, any questions on that?
I'll make one comment. I have seen the signs and they are very nice, Ed. You did a very good job. And with that, I would make a motion to approve the check 116158 in the amount of $265 to C Square Signs for Wedgwood Golf Course decals on cooler doors and coyote cutouts.
George Torres here. I'd second that.
Okay, we've got the motion in the second. We'll go to Jamie for the review.
Motion by Councilmember Farmer to approve the check number 116158 in the amount of $265 to C Square Signs for Wedgwood Golf Course decals on cooler doors and coyote cutout. Seconded by Councilmember Torres.
I lost connectivity there for a minute. Y'all with me?
Got you.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, we've had the review. We'll start the roll call vote. Sam Farmer,
Aye.
Ed Campbell,
Abstain.
Denise Clausen,
Aye.
George Torres,
Aye.
Mike Wallace.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously, and personally, I think I want to come look at one of them coyote cutouts, Ed. We'll move on to the next item in new business. It's consideration of temporary waiving of certain utility fees. Ethan?
Thank you, Mayor Council. Per the discussion we had at our last governing body meeting with you all, as we look at our utilities and just trying to help out the community and our businesses, we thought one of the easier things we can do that should not pose a significant financial hardship or risk to the city would be authorizing the waiver of the normal delinquent payment and reconnect fees that normally apply. The other thing that brought this on is I did have an opportunity to visit with the neighbor store who is putting in for a grant from the Central Kansas Community Foundation to help Halstead residents who may be financially affected by this crisis with their utility payments. And in order to help those utility payments help as many residents as possible, this, with the reconnect fees being on a graduated scale where someone might end up with a $75 fee, well, that is a good portion that could go towards someone else's in needs bill. We will still be made whole by collecting the amount that was actually billed out. I tried to note in the agenda memo, we are very conservative with fee revenue in the utilities as far as any collection that we have from delinquent or reconnect. It's our hope that everyone can pay on time or is on level pay or one of our many programs to not have late payments or reconnects, but they do happen and we do have some revenue related to that. But overall, this should not represent any sort of material or large financial burden for the city to bear. And after speaking with City Attorney Jantz, he felt that this could be done by a simple motion by the City Council to authorize the waiving of those fees. They are technically set by ordinance, and we are only looking at waiving fees for the billing that would be due on May 15th and June 15th. And because we bill a month in arrears, those 2 months billed are actually the months of March and April. So this coincides with the bulk, and when most people have seen some sort of probably disruption or higher usage because they've been at home than normal type issue. So we would recommend this, but obviously it is up to all of you to decide as a policy issue.
Well, this George Torres, I think that's a good way to partner with the community and help out when we can. So I'm in favor of this. There's waiting to see if anybody else has anything to say.
This is Sam Farmer. I'm in agreement.
With that, George Torres here again. I will make a motion to waive delinquent payment fees and recommended fees for all city utility bills for utility bills due on May 15th and June 15th, 2020.
Councilmember Clausen, I second that.
Okay, council, we've got the motion and the second on the floor. We'll go to Jamie for the review.
Motion by Councilmember Torres to waive delinquent payment fees and reconnect fees for all city utility bills for utility bills due on May 15th and June 15th, 2020, seconded by Councilwoman Clausen.
Okay. And I said, earlier that I was going to leave this up to Ethan's discretion. I'm glad you brought it to the council this evening, Ethan. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the roll call vote. And Sam? What say you?
This is Sam Farmer. Aye.
Ed Campbell?
Aye.
Denise Clausen?
Aye.
George Torres?
Aye.
And Mike Wallace?
Aye.
Thank you, council. That passes unanimously, and it may be a small thing to us, but it certainly could have an impact on some people in town. The next item under new business is discussion of Capitol Street work. And I'll go back to Ethan for that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Hopefully you all received and had a chance to kind of look at the estimates for Capitol Street work that we sent out. Originally when City Superintendent Adams and I kind of sat down and looked at what we were going to do for this year and consulting with you guys in work sessions actually all the way in last year. The plan was to do this major street ceiling, and then in the 9th and Walnut area, we were going to look at reconstruction. We have several kind of Capitol Street projects in the works, which includes furtherment of the development in Cedar Meadows and the Red Fox. And after talking with the developers, they're very interested in doing both Stutzman Circle and the next block north of Main. Which would allow them to look at potentially patio homes on Stutzman Circle and then single family on Main. With constructing those new streets and the infrastructure cost we'll see there, as much as I hate doing it, I think it might be prudent for us to delay the 9th and Walnut just so we don't exercise or utilize all of our available cash on hand. Those two projects out in the Cedar Meadows area, of course, would be financed long-term, but you still need cash on hand to get those projects started and pay some of those upfront fees because we're going to have, our bond counsel and financial advisor fees to go along with that. However, obviously, again, this is a policy decision as far as whether you guys want to delay. I know there's a financial report later on the agenda, which I'll talk a little bit more on some of the overall impacts we're already seeing or anticipate to see to the city, but it's just kind of getting a feel from you all of whether you want to proceed these as planned, dial them back, or, even some cities are going as far as to say they're not going to do capital projects at all. So.
Well, personally, I don't think we want to delay anything that would immediately affect the developer. But on the same token, with being unsure of what's coming down the pike, we're definitely going to have to start prioritizing some projects. And I'm going to leave, my feeling is what you tell us is going to work best for the city and the budget. That's probably the direction I'm going to choose to follow, Ethan, but I'll let the rest of the council weigh in on this.
The left.
George Torres here. You know, it's been a long time since we've been able to put some money into the streets. We've had some bond issues go away, and it's allowed us to put money back into the community on our streets. At 9th and Walnut, I'd really like to see that done, but I also understand that we have opportunity to grow the city on the south end of town there, which would bring more people to town. And that's a real hard one for me. Like, this is a discussion, but it's a real hard one for me to say no to the 9th and Walnut project. You go down there and drive around down there, and it's pretty bad down there. But anyways, just listen to what the rest of you have to say.
Well, this is Sam Farmer, and I guess I'm going to kind of echo, Denise, you went away. I'm going to echo Dennis Travis's thought process on this. The expansion in the cul-de-sac and Main Street and the new development, that puts new roofs in Halstead, and that adds to the tax base. I believe both of those together would be a bonded project, and a bonded project's going to take quite some time to get in process. And I think going forward with that portion will leave us with plenty of time to alter should it be necessary. I would be in favor of pursuing not Main Street across the culvert, but Main Street as the housing area, and the Stutzman Drive would be my inclination. And then as far as the Walnut, that's a bombshell. And I'm afraid we could get into the same situation that we did last year on one street, where what was it, probably a $60,000 project became a, what was that, Ethan, 100 and some thousand or 200,000?
Yeah, I think we cleared 200,000 by the time it was all done with.
Right. And I went over and I drove those streets today, and I took a good hard look at them. And I'm afraid 9th Street right there by 803, that could be a drainage issue that could become quite expensive. I don't think in a year that we're going to have any further major deterioration in that from what it is. And that's probably where I would prefer to avoid additional expense right now. That affects 2 houses in the last block, and I believe, what, 5 or 6 houses in the other block. And there's good arterials in and out of there anyway. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Are you looking for anything other than a consensus on this tonight, Ethan?
No, just I believe a general consensus. I mean, if the consensus would be to pursue the streets in the development, then that lets me know to go ahead and start more aggressively pursuing like our bond council, and working with Harlan and telling him, you know, hey, put 9th and Walnut on the back burner for now and move these to the forefront for us as far as our street projects, or vice versa. You know, we're delaying this, in which case I'll communicate with the developers and say, you know, this is not what we're going to do, and we'll move from there. So,
well, and like Sam said, for those street sections that will enable the developer to continue, those are bonded projects and not getting into the cash reserves for the city. And in the current economic environment, I think it's probably a good idea to hold on to as much cash as we can until we know where this thing's going. And I'm not saying we're not going to do those projects, but it wouldn't hurt to delay them 6 months or so and give us a chance to look through that window and see what things you're going to do before we commit to them. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, this is Sam Farmer. One other comment, if I might. If you look back over the last 4, 5, 6 years, there has been major street work done. Mm-hmm. And the seal and overlay that's going on right now, Those are all major projects. They're very visible and very necessary to preserve. So I think we've done everything that we can in a very aggressive manner. And right now it just kind of, I think, benefits everyone to be just a little bit cautious and let's hold up just a little while. Not abandon it, but just hold up temporarily.
Ethan, this is Councilmember Clausen. What would it cost us to have them to do the, one of the issues that we had with spruce last year was that they didn't take the core samples so that they knew what was under there. What would that cost, and would that be something to our benefit why we potentially put that on the back burner, if you will, to get those done so that when we're ready to pursue that, we kind of know what we're getting into?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that is completely kind of to Mayor Travis's point. We could do some of that prelim work because core sampling, I believe we spent, I want to say maybe it was even around 5,000 to get all of that done. And we could go ahead and drill cores this year, get Harlan testing those. And then, you know, we could potentially pursue if the financial situation is more clear and we're not as worried, you know, we could slate this for a very early 2021 project.
I think that'd be a fantastic idea. Mike, I seen you were trying to get in. Would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Councilman Farmer had indicated too. You know, we need to, you know, continue to work with, you know, our builder over there, and you know, progress forward with those streets. I know we've you know, been kind of waiting and trying to get some other projects and all done, but again, you know, that's some revenue stream that we can start getting into the city and bringing new folks into town to where they can start shopping small right here at our local town.
That's right.
Okay, council, anybody else want to weigh in on this issue? Hearing no further comment. Ethan, I believe you have your consensus. Are you satisfied with what the council has had to say?
Yeah, I believe, just to reiterate kind of what I have as the consensus, is to go ahead with the projects out in Cedar Meadows and delay the 9th and Walnut work until we have a better financial picture going into the end of the year and early next year.
Well, and I think council's in agreement that we can go ahead and get those cores started, so at least we know what to expect when we do decide to move forward on that particular project.
Okay.
So next item was an addition, and that's a consideration of the storm water drain repair. Ethan will enlighten us on that deal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, I apologize for the late email I sent you this afternoon, actually about probably an hour and a half before the meeting. We did finally get an estimated timeline. This is a project we've known about or had anticipated, and it's one of the many reasons why we started a stormwater reserve. Essentially, the city has a stormwater main that runs under Leg Company's building. And we have, thankfully, knock on wood, not had any major issues with it. But Leg approached us a couple months back and said that they were going to do an expansion and be kind of tearing into their buildings and their floor. And they are also aware of that issue and said it would be great if you guys needed to do any work to do it now while we have everything torn up. So we approached Harlan, and he got some preliminary plans drawn for it. We did look at potentially moving that stormwater main. That was deemed not feasible due to the cost involved. So the solution is largely a 36-inch ductile iron pipe. City engineer Foraker believes that's going to be our best solution that gives us the most longevity. We unfortunately have a very limited timeline. It sounds like Leg wants us to be done by the end of May. June 1st was kind of the deadline they gave us. So in order to keep this moving, we're kind of, without actually being able to get it to bid, would ask for council to approve a project amount not to exceed 40,000 for this stormwater main replacement there on Lake Company's property. And I guess I'll answer any questions. I tried to answer some I thought you guys would have in the email, but I know this is kind of an issue that just popped up. So
What size is the existing line, Ethan? Do you know?
I believe it is either the exact same size or it's actually smaller than the 36-inch.
And it's not ductile iron. It's something else.
Sorry, Pat's updating me here. It is 36-inch and it is not ductile iron currently. It's corrugated metal pipe currently.
Really?
Yeah, it'd probably be good to replace that.
This is Sam Farmer. I've got one question. Who bears responsibility on that?
As that's an actual main, that's ours.
So if that ruptures, does damage to the building, are we responsible for that damage?
I would let City Attorney Jantz weigh in on that question.
Absent an agreement, there's the potential for us to be liable in that case. If we're going to be under their building, and Ethan has talked to me about that previously, I guess that would be the one thing I would want to approach them about to be certain. I don't know that anything exists unless, Ethan, you found something previously when their building was constructed. Over the top of that, I think we could expect to get some type of an indemnification on it, you know, short of negligence or, you know, us doing something that intentionally created the harm. If it was just an act of God where the thing breaks or whatever, that we have an understanding that they're insured for that as well.
I would be far more comfortable if we had that in place. And I wouldn't think that'd be an issue with them. Matter of fact, I'd be surprised if that wasn't already in place at the time that they built over that storm main and knew it was there.
You would normally expect it to be. I can't imagine. Well, I guess if anything could happen, but normally if you're going to have something like that occur and someone's constructing over it in consideration for that, there's usually some form of perpetual indemnification that goes in place. I don't know what we have in our city records or when that was done. If we get back into that area when we had water damage, whether some of those records even exist. So that's probably something that behooves us to check. If it doesn't exist, we need to create it now.
Yes. One other, I'm asking a lot of questions, I apologize. I have one other concern. I haven't seen the overlay of where this line goes under that building, but I guess it's a question for Pat and his experience. Making that transition from the ductile iron pipe over to corrugated, and I'm going to guess that's galvanized corrugated pipe under there. Are you comfortable with that? And have you seen any of the process that'll take place in that transition and getting good joint seal?
Are showing a box to be built at that transition. So in other words, they're going to have an inlet box or like a manhole that the two pipes will join at. So they won't be direct connecting to each other. They'll actually have a manhole at that connection.
Will that manhole be in their building or outside of the building?
It's outside. The only thing under the building will be the ductile iron.
Okay, so you'll have corrugated going out of the box and ductile iron going from, what about the other end of that corrugated?
That we're still kind of discussing a little bit. The line starts out there at 10th Street, and what Harlan has drawn up is to replace it from 10th Street to past the new building construction. But they won't be direct connecting to each other. They'll have manhole. Discussion about maybe putting another manhole on the other side and just shortening up what we do with just underneath the building itself.
Okay, so that line runs north and south?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Pat, how
Yeah.
deep is that line underneath the building?
2 to 3 foot, I think, clearance between the bottom of the building and ground, or the top of the pipe, I mean. It's not terribly deep, but.
Yeah, my concern is if, in terms of their general processes, if they ever have need to tear into those floors and put in piers or something for a heavy piece of equipment, I guess I'm thinking out loud. I'd probably want something in that indemnification agreement that they're liable for damage that's done to that.
Absolutely. And ductile iron pipe is the best pipe to be used under a structure like that. I'm amazed that the corrugated pipe has lasted this long, to be honest with you.
Anybody else on the council have questions, or can we move forward with a motion?
I have a question and I guess a comment. I'm surprised that we've allowed building over our lines like this in the past, and to find that now we're looking at doing it again. And Ethan, I know you said we cannot relocate them because of the expense, but it just seems like we fought this before on the last expansion of Leg, and I don't like the idea that we're continuing this, but maybe that's the only choice we have.
If I might interject something, Ed, to kind of address your comment, and it's a very valid comment, and it's something that most cities and companies avoid doing. However, there are sometimes it just cannot be avoided. I know of one building in Salina, Kansas that has probably 4 city blocks of building with stormwater running under it. But I do know, I haven't seen the document, Brad, but in talking to their corporate people, I know that they accept responsibility for anything that might happen so that they could put their building over it.
Who is that company, Sam?
Great Plains, which is now what's still called Great Plains Industries. Yeah, you might want to call up there and ask them.
Yep.
Well, I know the city of Wichita, right there at St. Francis Hospital, that parking garage, the whole underneath of that parking garage is a stormwater reservoir that was specifically built for the city of Wichita to help with their flooding problems. So,
right,
it's not an ideal situation, but we've got to deal with what we've got.
We just want to be covered.
Will note, Councilmember Campbell, that they're not. There's already, concrete and whatnot over the storm water main as is. They're basically going to frame up that concrete area. There's very little new building that would go over it that isn't already, somewhat covered by the existing building.
It's just not an ideal situation. I understand.
Agreed. And I guess I would add, for clarification, based on what City Attorney Jantz, I believe, you are well within the parameters to, if a motion is made to move forward with this, say that the whole project is subject to getting those indemnification agreements.
I would agree.
So this is Sam Farmer. We need a motion on this right now to approve the 40,000. Is that correct?
Yes, it would be to approve the project amount of 40,000 to authorize myself and City Superintendent Adams to work with Certified Engineering on design and plans and advertisement of that project, so that we can hopefully bring interested contractors and bids for the job to you all at the May 11th council meeting.
Okay, Jamie, did you get that? If so, I'll make the motion.
This is Councilman Campbell. I would make the second to include Mr. Jantz putting together indemnifications for the city.
Well, there's the motion and the second. And Jamie will clarify this and we'll move on to the vote.
Motion by Councilmember Farmer to authorize City Manager Reimer and City Superintendent Adams to work with Certified Engineering Design to finalize, design, and advertise repair and replacement of the stormwater main running through Lead Company property for a project amount not to exceed $40,000 and authorization to sign any necessary documentation relating to said project, subject to the indemnification agreement, seconded by Councilmember Campbell.
Okay, sounds pretty clear to me, so we'll begin the roll call vote, and I'll start with you, Mr. Farmer.
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Torres.
Aye.
Mr. Wallace.
Aye.
And Mrs. Clausen.
Aye.
All that passed unanimously, and I called on you last, Denise, because your picture changed in its order that it was in on my laptop here.
No worries.
Well, we'll let Brad and Ethan get to work on that. And the next item under new business was COVID-19 response. So I'm going to go back to Ethan on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Travison and myself have been participating in Harvey County Council of Governments, meetings, and largely as we're hopefully in these final weeks of April and the presumed peak of the COVID-19 situation, everything's turning towards what does recovery look like? How do we reopen? And so just wanting to get a feel from you all, because the county is looking for that to inform any decisions they might make of, are we as a city interested in trying to reopen in a safe manner? Do we want them to play safe and be as restrictive as possible? So it's just kind of getting a feeling from you all where you're at as far as us reopening, from the simple things like reopening our buildings back to the public to the community at large. And there's cities that are already making decisions to not open swimming pools or things of that nature. So it's just kind of getting a feel from you all. Because right now, like with our summer programs and the swimming pool, we're planning like it's going to be opened, maybe subject to some different restrictions than we've seen before. But I just want to get an idea from all of you, what you're thinking, what the thought process is.
I'll leave the floor open to the council. Definitely a new frontier. I don't think any of us are real comfortable with taking a hard line on anything.
Harvey County had no special restrictions like Sedgwick County did, correct?
I don't believe so. It's been a while since I looked at what they had drafted, but the governor's statewide orders came down before Harvey County actually adopted, local. So.
Do you know if they're planning on initiating anything once the Governor Kelly's orders are what's the term I'm looking for, expire on May 1st?
Yeah, and that's what prompted this addition of this agenda item, because they're looking for input from the cities. This morning on our call, they asked us, do the cities, are they planning to open their pools? Are they planning to open their, do baseball and softball, that kind of thing. And they're also having discussions, with school districts, the long-term care facilities and healthcare. So it's just getting kind of your all feel, because we don't, I guess, want to roll out and say, yeah, we want to open the pool and then have, at a subsequent meeting, a majority of the council say, why are we opening the pool? And we actually don't want to do that. So.
This is Sam Farmer, and I guess my position on this, I won't object to the opening of any part of the city's structure where we can use safe distancing. That's probably the main driver. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Even if a restaurant wanted to open and they can give safe distancing, like utilizing every other booth, something like that, I think we're close to the point that we probably should start allowing things like that to develop, but enforced as much as we can.
Ed Campbell commenting, it's a tough call because it's a new frontier. We've not been here before, and to open and encourage businesses too soon could lead to a major setback. But then again, we've got to go on living too. So I don't know how to make the call. I'm glad it's not my call to make, but it's a discussion topic. I think we've learned a lot about social distancing and trying to maintain hand washing and sanitizing. And I think it's time to move on with life.
George Torres.
Go ahead, George.
You know, as this has gone on, you observe people throughout the community in different towns, different areas. And I've been thinking about what word comes to mind, and consideration is something I see continually, people exercising consideration when waiting in line or walking past one another in an aisle. I think our communities the people have taken it upon themselves to be considerate of a person's space. And as Ed said, I'm glad I don't have to make this decision, but I think we've all moved to a point of exercising consideration towards others. And given that, I think it would be, I don't believe it would be unreasonable to start looking at opening some of our facilities up, and like Sam said, possibly restaurants. And again, it's because of the consideration people are expressing towards one another.
This is Councilman Wallace. I echo that. We've got to start reopening and giving everybody a sense of normalcy, right? Again, like everybody said, we've learned from this pandemic. You know, as Councilman Torres indicated as well, that, you know, the citizens and all are respecting each other. And again, you're going to have some instances where it's going to be close, but it's up to each individual person, you know, to acknowledge that and to say, hey, you know, in a nice way, polite manner, hey, can you give me a little bit of space? You know, but we've got to get back to a sense of normalcy. So I honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to opening things and then leaving it to staff to, you know, to come up with a good plan for, like, the you know, the parks or the ball fields or the pool areas and all. But we've got to give these guys you know, something to come back to as soon as we can.
I think we need to remember that you know, there was so much about flattening the curve, and the whole premise and the whole purpose of flattening the curve was so that we did not overwhelm our healthcare system. All right, it's not going to affect the amount overall, the amount of people that are going to contract COVID-19 or eventually succumb to it. And so it spreads it out over a longer period of time, so you don't have that super high peak, and where we don't have enough ventilators or beds or nurses or those kinds of physicians to take care of patients with COVID-19. You have to remember that as we start opening up things, two things have occurred. They have now added more symptoms to the list for COVID-19. We are testing more people. Therefore, we're going to see our numbers go up, not because of the things that we're doing, but because we're actually testing more people. And that's just, it's a mathematical it's not even a probability, it's a mathematical certainty. We've been fortunate in Harvey County. We've not had a lot of COVID cases. And I think in the paper a week or two ago that they're actually furloughing some people at Newton Medical Center because they just don't have the patient numbers. I think that as we need to open back up, so much has been canceled. We've had, you know, prom was canceled, and graduation was canceled, and in response to all this, because we just didn't know. I would like to say that we need to practice social distancing. I think we can do this in maybe steps because our numbers are going to go up. I mean, they are. as we go out and we start returning back to normal again, it is going to go back up again. So we need to be aware of that, not be afraid of that. That's just because we can't live in our houses. We can't live this way until they come up with a vaccine, which is going to be probably another 2 years away. I mean, it's because we don't, there's a lot of research that has to go in, a lot of testing has to go into those vaccines. It's not coming by fall. It's not going to, I personally don't think, from what I've seen and the research and the things that I've been reading, it's not going to happen. I think we need to start opening things back up. I think we can always say, I think it's easier to say this is our plan and open things up and then say, oops, something else has happened, so maybe we need to delay that. I don't want to just flat out say we're not going to do this. Because I think for our kids, so much has been taken away from them already. I think, rec is a good thing, something to look forward to. And if we have to delay it, I'd rather take that approach than just saying, oh, let's just have a free-for-all and open everything up. Or say that we're just going to cancel everything.
One other thought on that. This is Sam Farmer. If we entertain the thought of allowing businesses to start reopening, one of the things we need to do is look at the businesses that can control what they do, that they can sanitize as people utilize tables, say a haircutting establishment where they can allow one person into the business at a time, sanitize after everyone. But to open, as an example, playgrounds, I'm real concerned about that because you'll have 50 kids going out there playing on playgrounds and no one's going to sanitize. So I don't think it hurts something like that to wait a couple weeks to see how things go, but reopen what can be controlled to the best of the ability of the owners. Does that make sense?
Anybody else on the council have anything they'd like to add? Appreciate your comments, council. And even though I wasn't present for the transition, I think that move from city administrator to city manager came with this responsibility to make this decision. It just wasn't put in there as COVID-19. That being said, Ethan, big shoulders there. We're going to rely on you to put together a plan, and we would welcome you to present that to the council for consensus on moving forward, or if you need us to vote on it, we can do that too. So I think that would be the best way to approach this. And Ethan will utilize the information that he's getting from the county as well as other communities our size. So we're not making an uneducated maneuver on this. We'll have some data to support the moves that we do make going forward. With that being said, we don't have an executive session this evening, and we'll move on to the report section of the agenda, and we'll start with governing body. And I'll go in order of my gala review, and I'll call on you, Sam Farmer, first to give you an opportunity for anything you'd like to bring to the governing body this evening.
Well, the one thing I would like to do is to thank our fire department, ambulance department, city crew, and everyone that, regardless of the situation, still has involvement and has to have involvement with the general public. And I think they put themselves at a greater risk than most of us realize. And I just want to put out a big thank you to the entire staff for the city of Halstead.
Thanks for that, Sam. Next, we'll move to you, Ed.
I would echo what Sam had said and add to it. I really think the street work that is being done looks good. It shows good, and I get a lot of good positive citizen comments on the amount of work that we're able to do this year. So thanks to staff.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ed. George?
Yeah, also have been getting a lot of comments from many citizens around town about the street work, and very thankful and appreciative of it being done. Also had opportunity to meet Eddie, our new canine. Incredible animal, and police officer. He's just having a great time partnering up with that fella. So, yeah, it's a good addition to our community.
Yeah, I've heard some pretty positive feedback concerning, is it proper to call him Officer Eddie, Ethan? He seems to be earning his kibble. So appreciate that, George. We'll move to Mr. Wallace.
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and finally, Denise, have anything you'd like to add this evening?
Not anything that already has been said, just a big shout out and big thank you to the city, because as far as the services, we've not really seen any disruption in that, and that's a good thing.
It's very good, and thank you for echoing that. Next, we'll move on to Ethan for the city manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, I might just ask City Clerk Everly to confirm that there were no public comments that we received to add to that governing body section this evening before I begin my reports.
Sounds good. Jamie, you have anything for us?
We do not have any public forum comments.
Okay, Ethan, you've put off your report as long as you can. You're up.
Thank you. All departments remain on COVID-19 protocols, and the buildings do remain closed to the general public access at this time. Staff continue to attend meetings and participate in discussions at the county, regional, and state level on the next phase of the pandemic, which includes reopening and recovery. We're awaiting guidance from state and county as to what stipulations or guidelines will be in place in terms of social distancing, crowd size limitations, following the expiration of several executive orders in the original state emergency declaration. And then we've sought input from you all this evening, and we'll share those with our partners at those levels to make sure that, Halstead has a voice, particularly in Harvey County, as what rolls out. The large street ceiling project is nearing its end. It's hoped that work will be finished by Friday of this week at the latest, possibly sooner if weather cooperates. Street sweeping is scheduled to begin the week of May 11th, so we would ask that residents try and refrain from parking on the street during that week to allow the sweepers to do as complete a job as possible. To that end, many of us have begun mowing in the city, our properties. I would ask and remind residents that they should not be blowing lawn debris into the gutters or the streets. If there's no objection from the council, I would like to have City Attorney Jantz prepare an ordinance to deal with such situations. As it seems every spring and summer we do run into this issue, and I know many other communities have enacted ordinances to put a little more teeth into it than the friendly suggestion that sometimes seems to fall on deaf ears when we give it. We have received documents back from the Harvey County Register of Deeds, both for our interlocal agreement that establishes the city of Halstead as a member of the Kansas County multi-line pool, and then the property at 204 Main. So I will work with City Attorney Jantz on the next steps on that property that we need from the city perspective, and coordinate a site visit for interested council members in the near future once we iron out the access. And then reports out of departments include the following: that Public Works staff have been working on street name signs, including getting the welcome signs put back up after their refurbishment. They've been installing new gas and water services, coordinating with our contractor on addressing the street tree in the eastern and southern parts of town. The hydro excavator has also been delivered. Preparation is also being done for levee mowing and weed management in coordination with other city departments on various projects. The city also did accept the resignation of Shane Thompson from Public Works. Considering the overall situation and uncertainty financially, we are going to hold off on hiring to fill that position for the time being, as we're just down one staff member with Shane leaving, because we do have a temporary employee in Public Works right now. Halstead Fire EMS are reporting seeing a decrease from normal expectations in the run volume, which has allowed them the time they need to coordinate with other area agencies and Harvey County Emergency Management. Halstead Fire also assisted with a few controlled burns, both on city property and in the area. And staff will be traveling to pick up Brush 21 this week. They're traveling within the state and have limitations to ensure the safety of our staff, but they're going to pick up Brush 21 and bring it back here to the fire department. Halstead Police did receive another donation from the from the Farmers Co-op group related to the Canine Project. I just want to thank Jack Queen and the co-op for their continued support of this project. They've been great, and we really appreciate it. The Dodge Durango has been put into service following the completion of its outfitting, and Sergeant Stovall and Eddie are enjoying that new vehicle. Parks and Recreation are gearing up for their summer plans as normal, as I stated, but we're also trying to maintain some flexibility because we don't know exactly what anything's going to look like pending those recommendations or guidelines from the state or county. Hopefully we get by the end of the week. Director Williams did manage to plant a physical tree for Arbor Day, and the normal celebration was done virtually with the high school or the middle school students this year via Facebook Live. So we're still keeping up with our long history of being a tree city, and thank Director Williams for thinking outside the box and getting that done. UMC has also completed sandblasting and painting of the bowl of the pool, and we'll begin work on the slide in the coming weeks to hopefully get everything done in time for us to open on around Memorial Day. Wedgwood Golf nears the end of the renovation project with office lights, ceiling fans, and guttering installed most recently. Staff have completed a round of verification around the course, and mowing is really starting to increase. The clubhouse does remain limited to staff only and then one individual, but other than that, closed to the public. And plans are being made for what operations will look like pending those new guidelines. Wedgwood has also seen an increase after their first membership drive of 15 members from the previous year's low of 54. So we're excited to see that membership increase out there. And that is all I have, with the exception of the quarterly financial report, unless there's any specific questions.
I have one question for you, Ethan. This is Sam Farmer. Would you make a statement for the viewers, the protocol, the procedure to take should they see yard trash being burned in a yard?
Yeah, so we don't allow open burning within city limits. That's an ordinance. So they should call 911 so that the fire department and police department can be dispatched to said addresses to deal with that situation.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions from any other council member? Seeing none out there, we will move on to our last item, which is Ethan's quarterly financial report. It's probably looking a little bleak, but we'll let Ethan bring us up to date there.
So our first quarter financials have been closed and reconciled by the city clerk and city treasurer. Largely nothing changed from those reports that you were sent out last meeting, so this is kind of going off of those. Across the budgeted funds, we did see a lower cash balance this year as compared to fiscal year 2019. I do want to note that the budgeted fund overall cash balance is lower, but most of those funds are lower due to transfers being made in a new schedule we adopted this year, which is transferring smaller amounts on a more frequent basis. And we did this, and it's fortuitously worked out to try and avoid any spiking of budgets or a drastic pull on cash, where before we just do a big transfer maybe towards the end of the year. So that is why this early in the year, we're seeing some declining cash balances. And in most cases, like I said, that cash is actually staying within the city's coffers, but it's being transferred to our reserve and capital improvement or equipment fund. So the city still has that cash. It's not being expended. It's just being moved to those capital planning funds. Revenues are actually slightly higher and expenditures are actually slightly lower than compared with last year. And those timing of transfers, like I noted, and then increases in things such as our neighborhood revitalization plan rebates help explain the difference in the general fund. General fund actually remains right on target at the close of the first quarter as far as expenditures and revenues. We do anticipate to see some pressure and declining revenues related to franchise fees, sales tax, and even potentially property taxes in the coming months. We've already seen our investment income drop by almost 44% in the first quarter compared to the first quarter last year. So that's going to obviously be a hit. Right now we anticipate and plan, but until we start seeing a few more hard numbers come in, it's kind of our best guess, and talking with, you know, the county or other governments on what they're seeing or anticipating, looking in our crystal balls, trying to figure out what our ultimate fallout's going to be. In our utility funds, lower cash balances are largely driven by the timing of those transfers. A warm winter did see our gas fund with lower revenues due to lower overall demand, but this is also going to be reflected in a lower expenditure amount for the purchase of that gas on the front side. So all of that should work out. Almost all of our utility funds have cash balances over 90 days worth of operations, so they do remain in healthy shape. The bond and interest has a slight decline due to the bond payments that began in 2019, which lowered the reserve cash balance in that fund. We did anticipate and expect that to come down, and one of the reasons we built the reserve in that fund was to absorb that new bond payment. So it's completely expected, but it does result in there appearing to be a lower cash balance. Along with certain general fund revenues, it's anticipated that our special street and highway funds will also see a decline due to low fuel prices and people limiting travel. As we largely use the monies for small street maintenance projects and street cleaning, we're not anticipating any major impacts as far as our operational plan, but we'll continue to monitor to keep you all apprised as we know more as far as what that potential fallout may be. It's no doubt that we're in unprecedented times, but the city of Halstead is on a solid financial foundation to weather what comes, and department heads remain committed to controlling expenditures and rising to this challenge when planning for 2021. We remain in good financial position overall as a city, and we plan to continue to advise the council and rely on you all to make those decisions to maintain that good financial health. And that is all I have without any specific questions.
Thank you, Ethan. Anybody have any comments on that last report? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
George Torres here. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Campbell, second.
Okay, we've got the motion and the second for adjournment. Do you need to review that, Jamie?
I do. We have a motion to adjourn at 8:02 p.m. by Councilmember Torres, seconded by Councilmember Campbell.
Okay, that being said, we'll begin the roll call vote. Sam Farmer. Turn your mic on, Sam.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Ed Campbell.
Aye.
George Torres.
Aye.
Mike Wallace.
Aye.
Denise Clausen.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Have a good evening. We are adjourned.